little story to tell. I went on a fishing trip, 2005, I believe it was, memory holds. It was my wife, my dad, and my mother. We all went, the four of us, just a small fishing trip, to Ontario, Canada. And usually, years past, for 20 years prior or so, it was the guys' thing to go to the same lake, and it was a private lake establishment, and you had a boat out. I think it was like a half an hour, boat ride. But before that, you had like a long trail. You had to huff all your gear down from your vehicles to, and even boats at times, down to the docking, if you want to call it that, and then get on your whatever 15-foot, maybe 16-foot, 14-foot boats, your aluminum boats with a motor that you put on, and you load everything up in there for your gear, and you drive out. And like I said, I think it was like a half an hour on windy days, that kind of stuff, maybe a little less. For the drive, on average, to drive out, you drive across the water, across the lake, you enter in where a river came in, and you drove across this large lake, and you drove to the cabin. So when you're out there, it's basically just you guys, whoever's out there. So usually in the past it was me and uncles and cousins, that kind of stuff. So maybe at most it was 16 of us, 18 of us, and average, I guess I would say there's probably 12 of us, 14 of us. But that's not the case for this one. This one I decided, I was working in this field, and I did some work for the place at the the rental place. Timberwolf Camps is what they used to call themselves. And I did some work for him. I was an art director, so I did some work for him, designed some stuff, and because of that, I got a free trip. Well, then I was able to afford to get my parents out there, my mom and dad, and my wife, so we all went. Anyways, I don't think you need to know any of that, but this was 2005. First day, we're out there, we get all our gear up there, that kind of stuff gets settled, then we go out, get all our rods lined up and everything, and we go out there and we're fishing. And my wife and I were in a boat, and we're fishing in a place that's called Gator Bay. It's called Gator Bay. And my dad and mother were a ways away. They were fishing somewhere else, and they came over by us. But we could see them now. We couldn't see where they were before. It was a very large lake with little crevices and that kind of stuff. And we're fishing, and I catch this 12-pound. I believe it was a 12-pound pike, northern pike, and get it up and get it in the boat. And I went to lift the rod or something, and he got the lure out of his mouth. I believe I was using a suic or a peg, and it had 3 treble hooks on it. And he spit it, and when he spit, he wasn't loose, because I had something else. That doesn't matter. But he split, and he went down, and he still had the hook in his mouth, but he wasn't fully. He didn't have a couple treble hooks. He had 1 treble hook in his mouth. And when he went down, he brushed my arm. All right? I say that lightly. He smacked down on my arm. And because of that, he fully was loose from the lure, because one of those treble hooks got caught in my arm. And it's the top of my forearm. And I believe I still have a scar. It's tough to see now, and that hook went right into one of those treble hooks, large treble hooks, and they had 3 points on it. One of those went completely into my arm, and it was into the muscle, and it was in there deep. And we had to get the fish back in the water. And then I'm like, I don't know what to do, because the hooks have those barbs on them. You can't just pull it out. You'll destroy your arm. And I was just like, holy cow. My dad, we call him walkie-talkie or whatever, and he came over, and he's like, well, I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to push it all the way through. And we had inches, it felt like inches, but it was probably, a quarter of an inch, maybe a little more than that, 3/8 of an inch, to go. And we had to get through the muscle to come back up through, so the barb of the hook can get out through my arm also. So we can cut the barb off and then pull the hook out, reverse it back out once the barb's gone. and he's pushing it, and it was so much pain. And I'm just like, I was like almost passing out there. And we just started our trip. We just got out there. I was just, I'm like, he's like, well, if we can't do this, and I want to do it in the boat, but I'm like, there's no way I can do it. I mean, it was so painful. And I was white. I was like, I'm going to pass out if we continue to keep trying to push this thing. So it's like, all right, well, then we got to pack up. And don't pack everything up, but just pack up, our fishing gear, get to the cabin, and then let's bail out and go to the hospital. All right? Now, we're in Canada, Ontario, Canada, 2005. And I had no idea, Canadian healthcare system. I'm like, all right, we got to go. So make sure you got cash, and make sure you're good, American cash, that kind of stuff. And then we'll just go. So we get there. This is the reason for the story. We get to the hospital. I walk in with my dad, I believe my mom, and my wife are outside still. And we walk in, and I get there, and I walk into a hospital. I've been in many hospitals in the United States throughout my life when I was little, and for my children, that kind of stuff. And I walk in, and it was like a ghost town. No one, nothing. No one walking around, not even janitors walking around, nothing. It was sterile, nothing. I say sterile because there was no human movement at all. I walk up, and there was this counter, and this large counter, and there's one lady at the counter, and I said, I'm here, because I got this, and I showed my arm. It had this hook in it. And I said, I need this removed. And while I'm talking to her, I look up to my right, and I see a child with his mother sitting over in the waiting area by themselves, I should say. And he's got his tooth, he's bleeding. He's holding like a rag, just sitting in the chair holding the rag, and his mom's by him. And he's bleeding, and it's just, the rag is halfway full of blood, or halfway covered with blood, I should say. And it's continuing to go, and he's just sitting there. And I just noticed this, and I think nothing of it. And I tell her, I'm like, I'm here for this, and I'll show you if I can get you. So this was a treble hook, and we had cut off one barb when I'm in the boat, cut off one of these barbs, and then so when I got to the hospital, this was the one. This one here was the one that was inside me. Then I told her, I'm like, I need this gone. Also, on that same note, when I was in there, also this was stuck in my arm too. If you can see this is one of the northern pike's teeth. I don't know if you're is that focusing. I'll try this one too, just to see, to show you the size of that treble hook. If you can see, so all three were cut off. But anyways, so I go there, and I'm like, yeah, I need this out because this just happened. And she's like, well, we don't have anyone in right now. You'll have to wait. And I said, no, I'm from America. I said, we're here on a fishing trip, and we're paying cash, and I would like this out right away. She said, oh, you're paying cash? I said, yes. She said, so you pay your complete bill right now? I said, yes. And she said, okay, we'll call a doctor in. And that blew my mind, because I'm in a hospital. There's no doctors there. It seems like no one's there except the receptionist, if you want to call her that. And it's like, okay. She's like, and I'll call him and see how fast he can get here. So then I go sit, and I'm sitting across, the little area from the child with his mother with the tooth issue there. That looks like it's barely hanging in there, maybe by a few roots. And I'm just sitting there, and she goes over, he'll be 20 minutes. So then we just wait around for 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes comes, and then the doctor comes in, in the hospital. He says, okay, let's go. So I just follow him, into the back area there, and we get in a room. And then he's doing it, he, drugs me up, or gives me, the numbing drugs or whatever I needed for it. And I didn't feel anything. Now I'm like, this is good, it's good to go. And on a side note, he was trying to push it through. He didn't have any tools. He was trying to use his surgical tools to push it through. And then he's like, yeah, our janitor's not here, and I don't know if he's available. Do you guys happen to have a pliers or anything? So I said, yeah, actually, we have pliers in the truck. So my dad ran out to the truck, grabbed the pliers out of his back of his truck, and then brought that in, this pliers that we brought in. And then he's like, all right, that will work. So then he's like, so what you do is you put the pliers on the back, and I need you to push it all the way through. He's like, then I'll grab it, and once it's through, then I'll snip that barb off. I said, okay, so, and I'm trying to push, and I'm trying, and then the doctor has to help me push too at the same time to get it through that muscle. Sorry if this is gross, but we get it through and get it poked all the way through, and I held it there, and he could snip the barb and then pull it back out. But anyway, so that's that all said and done. I don't know how long it took. It seemed like it was pretty fast, other than not having the tools. But I go up there to pay. It's all done, and then I said I'd like to keep the hook and that kind of stuff, and that's why I have that. And actually, he gave me, and this here is what I keep the hook in. It's actually from the hospital, Canadian Hospital. That's where I keep that hook in. Anyways. And so I'm up there, and I go up to the receptionist. I said, I'd like to pay. I said, how much? She said, did he tell you? I said, no. So then the doctor ends up walking by, and she's like, how much? And I think he said, $200 or something like that. I forget my numbers now. It's been so long. I thought he said like $200 or $180 or something. And it's just off the top of his head. So then I said, all right. So I, got it, the money, cash, paid it, and that was that. And then I saw him, the doctor, after he talked to the receptionist for a second. Then he walks over and he's like, why is he here talking about that child? She's like, well, he's been sitting here all morning. And granted, this is now, we're in the afternoon, by the time I went in there for this thing, because we were out fishing for a trip. And he's like, well, how long has he been there? And she's like, well, he's been here since this morning. And he's been waiting, because this happened at his baseball game or ball game or whatever he had this morning. And he said, well, since I'm here, I might as well, check him out. And then by that time, I could hear, and I could be wrong, but I could hear, I thought he said I got it, the child. So I don't know if that meant he got it out by that time when he's just sitting and waiting or what, but it seemed like then the doctor took care of the child. Why am I saying this? Well, besides that, this was a story that was beyond me. I want to show you this too. This is that picture of how the hook was in my arm. So I took this. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to make it. Or you can see it. If you can see how it was in there. So I'm saying this because that was all foreign to me. That was all amazing. I mean, I'm just used to going to hospitals. I was, and then you're there, and you got doctors, and they call in specialists if you need that, and bam, it's done. This was under Canadian healthcare, and I knew about it. I heard about it. I heard both sides. It's good, it's bad, whatever, and that was my experience, and that made me really, really dive into things and say, okay, what really is going on? What really is happening here? So then I looked into things. If I wasn't an American citizen, or if I was a Canadian citizen, let's put it that way, I wouldn't have got helped right away. I would have had to sit there and wait. And I started looking stuff up. I talk to other people now that live in Canada or used to live in Canada, and they tell me stories way worse than what I had, or way worse than the one the child had, of months having to wait for major stuff. I know, like, I'm reading some stories here, and actually one of these people told me that they know someone who requested a colonoscopy because she was having stomach pains and they couldn't get to the bottom of it. But she was denied because she was too old. And there's too many younger people waiting ahead on the waiting list. And even ones that were behind her on the waiting list, because they were younger, they got put ahead of her on the waiting list. And by the time she got one, she became untreatable, and she died shortly thereafter. And there's many stories like this. I'm reading stuff. I mean, after this whole ordeal, I was reading stuff of there's long waits for care. There's a fact of life in Canada. That's just everyone that lives there realizes it's a fact of life, and you have to adjust your life accordingly, because you can't think you're going to get to the hospital and get taken care of right away. No, you have to deal with that and work around it. So the median wait between referral from your general practitioner and a specialist for treatment is nearly 21 weeks or even longer. I think that was average in like 2019. And then now in like 2019, I know as of 2019, there was more than 175,000 people in Canada on the easternmost provinces that were waiting and still are waiting for just a family doctor. That's, over 175,000 waiting for a family doctor. So, I mean, everything I get from this, everything I read of this, and all the people I know that experienced this stuff, it seems like the single-payer system they have, everyone characterizes it, that's been through it, and actually had to live under it, has characterized it by long waits, equipment shortages, judgments of care according to age and other factors. Canadian citizens are always pushed behind non-citizen payer, which that was my first case scenario. That's what happened. I mean, that child wasn't waiting there. He was waiting there before I got there, a while before I got there. It could have been hours, I don't know. And then I got taken care of, and the reason the doctor came in the hospital is because I was there. So the doctor came in the hospital because I was there paying. And then since I was there, I don't know for sure, but it sort of seemed like he was going to take care of that child too. But that was after I was taken care of and I paid. But anyways, I just got to tell the story, and I see all the stuff going on with the more top-down stuff and the more government-ran things that are being pushed out there, that are being done, especially with the healthcare or the hospitals, that kind of stuff. I see it out there, everything that's being done. And I'm just like, there's not a light at the end of this tunnel. There's nothing but darkness and pain and anguish at the end of this tunnel that they're trying to push us through. Anyone who says the Canadian healthcare system is great because it's free, those are two falsehoods. One thing, it's not great. It's horrible. And the second thing, it's not free. It's freaking expensive. They don't realize it because they're getting it stolen from them, just like you and I do with our taxes. But it's even worse than that. And then you want to step it up. Years ago they said that Cuba had a great health system, and now I think they backtracked and they don't say that anymore. That's sort of like saying that, people in North Korea are great because everything's sort of taken care of for them. Well, then that goes along the same lines as, well, everything in the prisons are great too because they got free food and board and heat and everything they want. Okay, let me rephrase that. Everything they need, nothing they want. But that's not how it's sold to you. Everything they need to absolutely sort of survive to the best of the ability that the government will allow. Period. That's it. Or the warden will allow, or the system will allow, that kind of stuff. But anyways, I hope I didn't ramble on too long. I just thought this was too good of a story not to share under the stuff that's going on. I'll show the photo again. That's the deal. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like, share, subscribe, that kind of stuff. And as always, stay vigilant. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your health, and protect your wealth.